Hi, this is Catherine, and this is Taking Tea with Catherine, and this is Tea and Mystery. I'm drinking stress support tea out of one of my Sherlock Holmes mugs. I have two of them, and a teapot, because, why not? And I'm not incredibly stressed today, just a normal day with its ups and downs, but I might be getting more stressed because my young cat Jane Poston, to be completist, uh, she's going through heat. And I knew she was going to because when I got her, I knew she wasn't spayed yet, and she's over 1, and she should have been already. So, not my fault, but yes, now it is my fault, because now I gotta get her taken care of. um, and so I may have a few rough nights of howling before I get this taken care of. So I need to have all the herbal tea I can have. That has nothing to do with mystery, but just in case you hear the howling in the background, you won't be wondering what on earth is this horrible sound. Or cute sound. Some people are like that. So, I've read, since my last tea and mystery, 3 books, and my main focus has been, in recent times, if I can find things that take place in London, I focus on that. But I wasn't entirely successful in that some of the mysteries that were really, really focused on London, I haven't started yet, or I just started and haven't completed yet. C'est la vie, as they say in Paris. But I did read 3 books, and they were all good. They all take place at least some point in London, though. But one thing I realized, it's still February, and even though New York has had so many warm days, and we haven't really had proper snow yet, I'm not complaining, because at this point I'm fine with that. But what I really like, honestly, for mysteries and when it's cold out, is the cozy mystery. And you know what I mean. That's my other cat is howling now. Oh, yay. The other type of mystery beyond the whole, hardened detective, blah, blah, blah. I like the cozy mysteries because I read what the definition of cozy is, and it's usually a female detective, not always, but usually, and usually they're harmless kind of people that everyone seems to say things around. I like the Miss Marple type. She's one of the prototypes. And, yep, here we go. More howling from the other cat. It's a great day, isn't it? But yeah, so, I kind of like that feeling because usually the crime is, even though it's important, it's not usually traumatic, although it would be in real life, but it doesn't usually, you don't really feel horrible about whoever died. And again, that sounds terrible, but it's just the styling of the book. Oh my goodness, these cats. But if you only saw, I'm not putting the camera on them because Freddy's neutered, by the way, but you wouldn't know it. Oh, drama. Okay, I gotta focus. So, but the books that I picked this time, or that I ended up finishing, were not like that at all. They were pretty active, very, very much adventurous in some ways, and all, I think, male detectives, and somewhat gruesome in some of it. Not all, some of it. But let's get started. I'll show you the ones that I'm talking about. And this was the one I finished first, and this is very London-centric. And that's Dust and Shadow by Lindsay Fay. Has more title to it, but of course the old library copy decided, let's put a sticker right on it. There's plenty of space, no offense to the blurbs, but there's plenty of space here. But at least they didn't cover up the Conan Doyle Estate's little praise. Well, that's good. Yeah, it's very distracting. But I had this recommended for me. Give me a moment. Okay, so there's nothing I can do about this. I'm getting completely distracted today by this little relationship between these 2 cats right now. I have never seen this in my apartment before. Because the last time I had a cat in heat, I had a very much older, sickly cat with her, and he just ignored her. Okay, let's get back to this book and talk about something more pleasant, right? Like Jack the Ripper. Well, the thing is, I have never really wanted to read much about Jack the Ripper. I'm not saying I won't read anything that talks about Jack the Ripper. I will, and I do still want to read the 5, but I just don't like the whole gruesomeness of it. And this does cover the gruesomeness of it, obviously. If this were dramatized or adapted for TV or movies, I probably really wouldn't want to watch it because of that graphic bit. Um, and but you know that Sherlock Holmes, even though he's fictional, his time period, the little calendar of years that Arthur Conan Doyle had him living, would have definitely covered the Jack the Ripper time. So someone had to cover this. I don't know if this is the first person who did, but Lindsay Fay did a great job of what would happen if Sherlock Holmes was called on to help investigate the Ripper killings, and how would he get involved, and how would it affect him and Watson, but how would it affect Sherlock Holmes? And there's something that happens in here. This was written before the Sherlock series, but reminded me a little bit of the Reichenbach Fall episode of the second season of Sherlock, where there's a somewhat things turn on Sherlock Holmes, where it's like, wait a minute, these things are happening, you're brilliant and you uncover them, but why are you uncovering them? Is it because... Anyway, so I don't want to get into further because that's a little further into the book, but... Oh, the howling. But anyway, this is a really ambient little show today. Give me a moment. Let's see if we can get through this without more howling. But I like it because, well, for one thing, it does, I don't think... No, Jack the Ripper was never caught. No one really knows for sure who it was. I don't think even now, right? And although I haven't done much reading about it, I really don't think anyone really knows for sure who was Jack the Ripper. And did he just kill those people, or were there more killings, and etc.? And basically, why did he kill these people? I mean, there's always this feeling of, well, a lot of them were prostitutes, therefore punishment or whatever. But what I like about this book is that, okay, so Sherlock Holmes has, if you've read any of his books or stories, or if you've watched anything dramatized, he has what he calls his irregulars, or the Baker Street irregulars, which are young boys, basically young kids who find things out for him. They're kind of like his little spies, and it's a perfect idea because they can get places where adults wouldn't be able to. And they could hear things that adults wouldn't be able to. So that's fantastic. But you see what happens when he does have one of his irregulars slightly involved, and he realizes that, no, this is not a case for the boys. So he enlists the help of a girl named, I don't remember her name, Mary Ann Monk, a woman. And it's great because she is in a lot of ways, like the women who were killed. Not exactly, but a lot like. Similar situation. I think she knows at least one of the victims. And that's good, because who better to get into... I mean, yeah, it's a risk, but who better to get involved in a situation? Who would Sherlock Holmes get involved in this kind of situation? So it's all that. It's all the drama of a person that is... Because we know, but we don't know much about what happened, we know that Sherlock Holmes would have had a massive challenge, even him, this is like up there with like Moriarty, what's his name, Charles Augustus Milverton, I think his name is, the blackmailer, etc. Those kind of really bad guys. So I really did like it, even if it was very depressing in its subject matter, but really cool. And like how the police were involved and how they weren't always helpful in some ways, and politics that were involved. So very good. I totally recommend this. I gave this 5 stars. I think this was my only 5-star of the 3, but that's it. So then, of course, I'm doing my Agatha Christie as much as possible, and especially Poirot right now. And I think this month I was in order of what I've been reading so far, and this was The Big Four by Agatha Christie. This edition, a little puffy, and it was good. I do like, so far, I've liked all the Poirot I've read. It was different than a lot of the Poirot. Now, I know from not having read all the Poirot, but from having watching adaptations, that he didn't just stick to being in London, finding out about something, or going to a country house. So I knew that it was not going to be completely cozy, whatever. But there's something about this one, and I did give it 4 stars on Goodreads, even though I think it's more of a 3.5 stars for me. But I thought I have to give it 4 stars because it's called The Big Four. You know, that's my way of being charitable. I don't know. Still good. I mean, this is one of her earlier books, 1927 copyright. So, I mean, this had to have been written within a year or so of when she disappeared. So, I mean, she was still. That was interesting. That was a mystery in itself. But it was okay. So the deal of this particular story is that, well, first of all, Hastings is back, which is good. I think he's my favorite narrator, even though sometimes he is just clueless about certain things. But it helps because the average person would be probably almost as clueless as him. So you sort of put yourself in his place, I guess. And he was married, and he is living in Argentina. So he comes back for a visit, and of course it coincides with a big thing that Poirot ends up investigating, although it kind of falls into his lap. And it's just that everything that they run into within the span of time of this investigating keeps being involved in it. It seems like a paranoia first of Poirot's, but it keeps centering around the Big Four, which are 4 people who are very powerful, who are moving things around in life and affecting the way things are happening. And they even have like a kind of secret lair dug out of a mountain. It's very Legion of Doom, Dr. Evil, I don't know, any of these kind of people, which I don't know how much of that had been written before then. I'm sure I'm missing books that had similar premises. But when you see when it was written between the 2 world wars, you know that even though, okay, World War I was over, you know that everybody who was at all on top of the world and what was going on knew that things weren't quite over and knew that things were brewing and to the brim of something's going to happen. So to slip something like this in, almost like not spy novel or espionage, but something like that, wasn't a bad idea. Wasn't a bad idea of Agatha Christie. I just don't think it was her strongest thing. It's very unrealistic. I mean, not mysteries do tend to be unrealistic because these detectives are brilliant beyond measure. But I mean, Poirot does make a lot of kind of silly mistakes. But Hastings finds himself in all kinds of stuff. He's so trying to be this gentleman, this valiant person, and he is a good person. But my goodness, dude. And there's a little bit of the racism of the times. A little bit of stereotype stuff that I'm not crazy about, but it's going to be of the time. But yeah, it was just unrealistic because things just kept suddenly being the Big Four, and just at this time is just when he realizes that there is such a thing as the Big Four, suddenly everything seems to be, and there's a master of disguise. Really, there's kind of more than one master of disguise, but there's really one major one, and there's a scientist. There's a whole thing with a chess player, or is it that kind of thing? A Chinese man who is never actually seen in this one, and probably better off because they probably would have done something completely bogus. And some person who's like the destroyer, who is a master of disguise, and they keep running into him and never realizing that they're running into him. It is an interesting premise, and that's why I gave it about 4 stars, but I just think that if I'm going to, and I can't yet, but if I'm going to ever do a ranking of my favorite of the Poirots, it won't be my favorite. I don't think it will be my least favorite. I think it'll be just okay. If you're in the mood for adventure, because these 2 books that I'm going to be talking about, these last 2 books, take place all over the place. It's not just London or parts of England. It's also parts of France, parts of Belgium, the Atlantic Ocean, Italy, etc. So if you like that sort of thing, then you might like this book. I know that I was reading some reviews also online, and this isn't one of her most beloved, but some people have a special place in their heart for it. So I think I will have that too, just not like a, this is my best favorite one, Anyway, and yet I think it's the first adaptation I ever watched of Poirot's, because I didn't really watch it growing up, so if I watched it at all, it was kind of like behind the scenes. I think this is the first one, and it was one of the later ones that they did, in their order, the David Suchet. I think it's one of the first that I actually sat and watched on my own. So, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So here's the library book, and it's the next book in the Lord Peter Wimsey novels. Dorothy L. Sayers' Clouds of Witness. I showed this to you guys already, and I just hated I hate this cover so much. It just doesn't seem to work. And it's large print, which is good because my eyes could always use a break. And I did like this one. This is probably, though, my lowest rating. I will keep reading the Whimsy books because I do like it pretty much. But I get the feeling, and honestly, this is the most cozy one in some weird way. It because it has a lot of the taking place in the big manor house, some things happened in that sense. But when I say cozy, I mean compared to the other two, which means that it's not cozy at all. So basically, Lord Peter Wimsey is away on vacation. He thinks he's going to just get away and be able to chill out for a little bit. And then he gets called back because his brother, the Duke of Denver, is arrested for murder. The murder of their sister's fiance. So, of course, all kinds of things. Why did he do it? If he did, why would he have done it? Why did things happen in the sequence? Why is Lady Mary, that's the sister, who I pictured as Lady Mary from Downton Abbey until they described her physical appearance, which was totally different. But why was she so hesitant to talk at the beginning, and then what's going on? And so he gets called in to help, get his brother exonerated, basically, because even though he's a big lord or peer, whatever they call it, which who very rarely gets arrested for murder and tried or executed or whatever, it could still happen, and they don't want that to happen in their family, even though they're not extremely close, I don't think. But anyway, so he obviously does investigate, and with help from his butler Bunter and his friend Parker, who is a great kind of sidekick police person. And yeah, and this also takes you all over the place. This starts, I think, at Corsica, and then it's in Yorkshire, in London, and New York, Paris. Did I say Paris? The howling has started again. I should have done Hound of the Baskervilles today with all this howling. But speaking of which, there is a whole thing with like the moors and the bog and all that stuff that I thought was just drama for drama's sake, and I think that's what turned me off about. I can't tell you why and how this scene came in because I'll give away things. But yeah, and there's a lot of there's court scenes, and there's all kinds of chases and running away and weird people and going to pubs, to investigate things, and there's communism. I don't know. Of this time. It's another one. Let me see. It was written, I think, is also written in 1926. So the same time period as the Big Four. So an interesting time. I still like reading about it, even though, again, sometimes certain words and slang and stuff gets me a little like, what? But it didn't sit with me as far as I just thought it was completely all over the place, physically and mentally. It wasn't hateful. I would give it 3.5 stars, and that's still good. I just think that if I had started with this book, I wouldn't have continued with the Lord Peter Wimsey. I would have said, pass, But because I did like Whose Body just enough to keep going, this one, okay, not as good, but I do want to keep going. I don't think I'm going to rush into the next one, though, so I think it has slowed me down a little bit. So I don't think I told you that much about it. I hope I didn't give away any spoilers. This is the thing. You want to talk about books and why you like them, what they are, but you're so afraid to give away spoilers. And in mysteries, you really don't want to give away the spoilers. But they were all not bad. You know what I mean? None of them were bad books. They were just, different levels of okay. So the next teen mystery I do will probably start including the March Mystery Madness. And I'm glad about that. And I have started a book, The Murder at the Museum, which is one of the books I had on my TBR. I don't know if I'll be finishing it in time by the end of the month, but whether I include that with my March Mystery Madness books in my next teen mystery or not, I don't know. We'll see. But I really hope that this next time, and I think, I'll turn my back on you guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think I have at least one cozy next month, so that's good. I do need that too. I don't need it to be all cozy. It's okay. I can stomach, certain things, but I need a little bit of, just mystery over tea. You know what I'm talking about? So, which means I probably should start reading Miss Marple, but I want to keep going with Poirot for a little while longer, and then I might veer off to Marple briefly. I don't know. I make plans. Nothing is certain. Anyway, so I think I've talked enough about these 3 books. Let me know if you guys have read these books, if you like them, if you want to read them more now, or if you want to read them less now. And that's all for now. This is Catherine from Taking Tea with Catherine. Have a lovely, hopefully more cozy, less howling, tea-filled day. Bye.